Once again, I welcome each and everyone to this third lecture to be delivered by Father Dr. Yann, and this also will be on Trinity. And I hope more people will be joining. Or no idea. Some people are having RPC and all that, but I hope they will join us shortly. Yeah, and we will follow the schedule, I think. So we will start the lecture, and after the lecture, we can take few questions and we can have good discussions as well. So I welcome everyone on behalf of the department, and especially our eminent speaker, Father Dr. Yann, to kindly come over and deliver the lecture.
Good afternoon to everybody. So I know that you had a very interesting, challenging lecture this morning on the double. I hope you still have little energy to end this series of lecture. The first day, we were making a journey in the Greek philosophy. Can we just fix this? It's okay. So we were making a journey in the Greek philosophy with the question of the one and the many, looking different answers, coding those two ways, the ways of Parmenides, stressing the one, and the way of Heraclitus, which has not been so much followed, stressing on the many. Yesterday, we came to this paradoxical answer of the mystery of the Trinity. As I told you, the Trinity is a concept by which the Christian has tried to understand the art of their faith, how they believe in one God, revealed by Jesus, presented himself as the eternal Son, sent by the Father, and with the Father giving the Spirit. Jesus revealing God in a new way, one, but as a mystery of communion and a mystery of love. Hence, the paradox. Yesterday, we were trying to walk on this very narrow ridge between the one and the many, because Trinity, as I said, it's the one, the absolute one and many. I think one is not difficult to understand, but it is the one which has an inner dimension, an inner life. And this many in the Trinity, I told you, it's better to speak of alterities, because it is not 1, 2, 3 as separate gods, but it is 3 centers generating relationship. So the many in the Trinity I put in bracket, but I have to maintain this consideration of the many, especially when we speak of the relationship asymmetrical between the God Trinity and the world. And this is something generally in India, people, whatever their religion, they know about the Christians, that Christians are known for their seva, for their service. Think of Mother Teresa. And this service is justified because everybody is unique. Everybody is singular. Everybody is singular. So this many into bracket that I have to maintain in the mystery of the Trinity as an illustration in the infinite dignity of each human being. Now, after having dealt with those paradox of the Trinity, and especially yesterday I was dealing on this mystery of the Trinity more in a philosophical way. I would have done differently if I would have spoken as a theologian. I would like today to reach to a certain conclusion, which is an opening. It won't give a full stop, it won't be a final stop, but I hope it will be an opening. And this third lecture is called The Foundations of Sin Ontology. Sin, it is a prefix in Greek, sin, sun. In Latin, it is cum. Sin means together, or as a title of this series of lecture, being as communion. Ontology, logos, the science of the ontos, the being, but this being is qualified as sunhon in Greek, being with, or in Latin, I said we don't speak of not only of esse, but of co-esse, Sorry to introduce all those Latins and Greek words, but also philosophy is to accept to enter into other languages. This is what I have done and what I'm still doing in India. I had to learn Sanskrit. You cannot only rely on the translation. You need to go back to the original, text. Because the philosophers are very great to manipulate in a very good sense. No, there is nothing pejorative to say that, but to manipulate the language. We need the language. The language is a finger pointing to those ideas, those concepts. Forget to see the time. So, Montchanin, Jules Montchanin, this French priest, came and settled near Trichinopoly, settled the Shantivanam ashram, the wood of peace, which is still going on, this Christian ashram. Montchanin was a theologian, but also a philosopher. After contemplating the Trinity with this question on the one and the many, he understood that we were in need of a different philosophy. I mean, we can't accept the fact that there are different philosophy has different points of view. And Montchanin said, to try to understand the Trinity, and not only to understand, but to be able to make understand to other people this mystery of the Trinity, we have to reshape our idea of being and our idea of the person. Person, which is a concept born into the Christian revelation, but which has a journey in the Western philosophy. The journey of this concept of person has been separated from the Christian cradle, the Christian birth. So to understand better the Trinity, we need to reconfigure our idea of being and our idea of person. And hence, this project of sin ontology, not only an ontology, because if I say ontology, I just think about the esse in Latin, the being. If I say sin ontology, I want not only to think of the esse, but of the co-esse, what in other terms of theology I was calling yesterday, the circumincessio or the perichoresis. This inner life of the Trinity, but also this articulation between the one and the many. And this project of sin ontology for Montchanin was not only to explain in a better way the mystery of the Trinity, but also to explain the human reality, I mean, this created reality, the world. Because, as you know, for the Christian believes that this world has been created by the loving will of God. And this world as a seal, as an imprint, a mudra, we would say in Sanskrit, that there is a seal because this world is dependent to God. And as this God is a God Trinity, there is a Trinitarian seal on this world, There is a mysterious Trinitarian reality made on every created beings, on us, for example. I will come back on that. So the sin ontology is not only to speak of the Trinity, but also to speak of all those human realities in which we are living. And here, Montchanin has been one of the pioneers of what we have called the ontology of charity, the social ontology, the Trinitarian ontology. I will speak of that briefly at the end, in the 20th century. Today, first day we were with the Greek. Yesterday we were with the first theologian of the church, the first 5 centuries of the church. Today we are making a big jump to go to the 20th century. And to understand what was going on at the time of Montchanin, in the 90s, 20, 30, 40, we have to come back to the philosophers in France, not only in France, because I will also speak of little of Martin Buber, but what was going on, in the philosophical scene of those years, 1920, 1930, 1940 in France. Actually, the philosophy at that time, there was a huge development, and sometimes you have a new movement starting, and they bring life, and they bring new idea. And this movement was called the personalist movement. Personalists, I mean, those philosophers were interested in the mystery of the person, but not an isolated person as we find in Descartes. In the discourses of Descartes, the philosopher is alone in his room, and there is nobody around. The personalist wanted to think of the person in relationship with the other person, with the other human being. What has been always a challenge for the philosophy, if you look at Heidegger, Sein und Zeit, Being on Time, massive book, 1929, I mean, quite revolutionary book. But there is only 1 or 2 paragraphs on what he calls the Mitsein, the being together, or coesse in Latin, It's been always a challenge for philosophers to think the mystery of communion, of being together, What is the philosophical meaning of, in English, we'll say with, to be with. But here, we'll deal with 2 philosophers, Gabriel Marcel, French philosopher, and another French philosopher, Gabriel Madinier. And Montchanin had a great interest for philosophy, and of course, he knew them. They were starting their career, but they were already quite famous at that time in France. Gabriel Marcel is almost forgotten in France, but I'm very happy that in the United States, Marcel is still studied, I mean, he's always full of insight. If you go to Marcel, his style, because each philosopher has his own style. So, Kant would be something very precise, maybe very dry, but Marcel has another style, a beautiful style. So Gabriel Marcel, actually, this word, co-essay, being with, has been central in the philosophy and theology of Jules Montchanin. Actually, I am quite sure that Montchanin found this word in Gabriel Marcel. In the metaphysical journal, metaphysical diary of Gabriel Marcel. Marcel, converted to Catholicism, was an atheist, and then he became a believer in 1929. And in his metaphysical journal, he speaks about his philosophical and spiritual itinerary. And as an existentialist, because those personalist philosophers were all existentialists, as I told you, he wanted to break with the solipsism of Descartes. It's famous when we say French philosophy, we think of Descartes, As I told you, Descartes, the philosopher, is alone and is meditating alone. And Marcel said, no, we have to not to think the philosopher alone, but the philosopher in relationship with the others. And speaking of a stage where the people are together, stage, for example, a stage of, let's imagine a concert we had recently, the Drupad Mela. So you see a stage where you have different musicians together. Or if you go to the theater to see some drama, you imagine a stage like that. Speaking of a stage where people are together, Marcel made this remark about this unity of the people on the stage, a unity of being with poesy. It is this unity alone that merits the attention of the philosopher. In order that this unity might be, it is first necessary, it seems, that there is a call, an invocation, a be with me, more or less clearly heard, without necessarily the subject knowing that he hears, or it is on the basis of this mysterious cohese that the vision can be built. To be with is to be called by somebody else, by the other. It is enough, said Marcel, it is enough basically to reflect on a relationship such as the word with, in Latin cum, in Greek sin, a relationship such as the word with translate, to recognize the extent to which our logic is poor and insufficient. It is in fact likely to express a relationship of an increasing intimacy. We have so much thought as philosophers, this relationship expressed in this word, with, to be with, expressing relationship of increasing intimacies. This unity, Marcel said, he said that is the mystery of the we, I, you, he or she, we. And the we have to think what is the philosophical value of this we, to take the otherness into account, If I say I, what I do of the other I, the you or the he. But in the we, I will hold together the I and the you. Indeed, for a human person, being in the world is not to be close in a solipsism, to be alone, but on the contrary, to be indissolubly linked to other selves or I. My existence is linked to other I, for which my own existence is inseparable. Indeed, to live is to be thrown, as Heidegger was saying, to be thrown into the communion of the why, by which I am and you are, only if I and you, we are. I am, when I live, I am immediately put into this communion of the we. And it is this we that takes out the very inauthentic world of think, because when somebody is anonymous to me, I don't care of it. Is it that? It's like an object. But if somebody starts to appear in my own scene, then he will become a you. And we don't want to live in this very inauthentic, very cold world of the object, but in a very personal and rich world of the different I and you making the we. And the we allows a proper invocation between the different I. I can't engage a relationship. We could characterize this world of the we as a world of intimacy, say Gabriel Marcel, of being with, coessae, being together. And Gabriel Marcel, point out that in the mystery of the we, in the presence of a you, of another person, I become really a I. I cease to be a it, an object, but I become a real I. At the end, I am fully myself because there is a you with whom I dialogue in this infrangible, unbreakable unity of the we. It is true. And in this way, I can reach finally myself, the fullness of my identity. So to be fully what I am, and I am to be, I need a you. I need to be with this you in this communion of the we. And it is this communion of the we which make me to become somebody, you know. We could say that sometimes the group is, and I will speak of that with the second philosopher, Gabriel Madinier, that the group is denying my own uniqueness, my own subjectivity. But to say that we are born, we are made full into the we, I mean, in the world like in the West, you know, where people are living quite alone. You go in a subway in Paris, nobody will exchange. If I start to look at somebody, you know, they say, oh, this man has a problem, you know, I will call the police, you know. And I'm always amazed in India. I mean, rarely you will see people alone. If the morning when I go to walk on the Ghats, I see, you know, when I go on the Ghats, I see people are always in groups, more or less, you know, and this is something which is so beautiful in India, that in this, you are in a society where you have kept this sacredness of the we, the we. So this is why for Marcel, if we want to think more about the world and the human relationship, we have to move from the essay, from simple being, to the co-essay, to the being with, which is ontologically more rich, more dense than the simple essay. And Marcel, in this philosophical diary, he has launched, I mean, he has spoken briefly, I would say, of two radicalization. I mean, he said not only I have to be open to a you, but I am called to be universal and to be open to all the you know. As you know, yesterday, you know, there was a question on the Holy Spirit. And I was taking this example of two friends and saying the friendship will be more fecund, more beautiful when the two friends are able to open themselves to a third one. So, and that is precisely what Gabriel Marcel said. We are called to this universal communion. I quote him, for a human being to be fully himself, to be fully what I am called to be, this human being must be open to a universal communion, outside of which he cannot be satisfied, and is ultimately doomed to corrupt and lose himself. And this universal communion itself can be only suspended within the absolute you. So there is two radicalization, one to be open to a universal communion. And you know, I mean, that is the experience that you do in the Department of Philosophy. I mean, you could only study Shankaracharya, the great man, you know. but you study other philosophies, not only from India, but from abroad, other religious tradition. And you feel better, you feel enriched, So we are meant for this universal communion. And this universal communion, ultimately, it is the absolute you. I won't enter too much in that, but for Gabriel Marcel, who is a philosopher, the absolute you is finally the you of the absolute, the you of God, here. But I won't say more about this absolute you, to just remain in the limit where I want to stand today. There was, at the time of Montchanin, so there was Gabriel Marcel in France. It was a time where a very famous Jewish theologian, who will be very important after the war, to help Israel to overcome this tragedy, Martin Buber. Martin Buber is, especially today, we remember Buber for a very short book, I and Thou, each and do, I and Thou, I and you, in 1937. So he was in Germany at that time. And another of those great luminaries of the personalist philosopher was in France, Emmanuel Mounier. Emmanuel Mounier. He was also, Montchanin was a friend of Emmanuel Mounier. And those philosophers have a lot to say to our world today. But I would like to concentrate on another philosopher called Gabriel Madinier, born the same year as Montchanin, and he died 1 year after Montchanin. Gabriel Madinier on the unity of love. I have not found a photo of Madinier, but here you have the cover of one of his very famous book, which was at the time in France, if you wanted to be a professor of university, you had to have written 2 theses, 2 doctoral dissertations. So that was the condition. And so his second doctoral dissertation is called, in French, Conscience et Amour, essai sur le nous, Consciousness on Love, un essai on the we, an essay on the we. It's quite remarkable because at that time, whether in France, in Germany, with Buber, there was a huge reflection on this question on the we. And that was at the eve of the Second World War, when the world, at least the West, will be shattered into pieces. Those people in such a way have prepared what will happen after the war, the reconciliation, the foundation of European community. In continent which was torn apart by 2 wars, they were able to create a community, a we. My first point, I would say, on Gabriel Madinier. So I am still reviewing those philosophers of the 1930s. It's called The Unification of the Multiple. In the 4th chapter of this book, Consciousness on Love, the 4th chapter is entitled Love and Reason. And Madinier want to try to understand in a better way the reality, the world. And for that, of course, as every good philosopher, he returned to the primordial question of the one and the many. And he said that in order to unify this multiple, the many of the reality, 3 categories, 3 possibilities are offered to us. 3 ways of making of those many a one. Identity, finality, and love. Identity, finality, and love. Identity. Identity, if I want to unify the many, I say what they have in common, and I just reduce them to a common denominator. Or I impose them to look all the same. All the same. Today, in the world, we are, in many ways, look at the fashion. How we are supposed to be all the same, having the same blue jean or whatever. Maybe you are more preserved of that in India, but You know, I mean, what it means, you know. We reduce everybody to a single identity. So I deny all what of you as unique, all your singularity, all your particularities. The second way to to unify the reality is the finality. Here in the fidelity, yes, that give a greater account of the reality that the identity, the first way. But Madini notes that in this category of finality, the whole alone is real, and the parts have only existence as member. They are totally subordinate. If you know the philosophy of Hegel, I mean, Hegel, you know, his great ideal of the state, you know, and to unify, to create this reality, which is the one, the state, you know, the geist and the spirit, say, okay, we'll have war, we'll crush lives, you know, but okay, if you die to build this state, okay, your life has been, so my life is just in view of this finality of what has to be built, you know. So in such a way, also here, you know, what I am in the depth of myself is also not recognized, you know, in this unity of finality. I have a goal, and all people have to enter in this goal and make it happen. So all the personal destinies, all the personal singularities are totally absorbed within this wall, which is to which we walk, toward which we walk. Of course, we can do that with the object, but can the human people, the spiritual subject, can be treated like that? It is here precisely that Madinier speaks of the third category, and that this third category of love appears. And Madinier says that love unites the alterities, what is unique in us, without destroying them, because it unites them in a communion in which the singularity of each, far from being lost, is enhanced and transfigured, you know. I don't want to disappear. What is unique in each one of those many, and here we speak of human people especially, doesn't want to disappear. We want to be one, but without having to sacrifice all what we are, you know. Because, I quote Madinier, because it gives justice to the singular being, you know. Love appears as the supreme category and the very expression of intelligibility. If we want the world to be intelligible, it must be understood as a work of love. If we want the world to be intelligible, it must be understood as a work of love. Actually, this is an experience we do, you know. If somebody loves us, we'll feel understood. He understands what I am in the depth of my secrets, you know. If we don't look at people with a minimum of love, we will deny what they are really, you know. To understand the reality, we need to love this reality. We need a passion to this reality. We need an attraction. Plato said that philosophy starts with wonder, tomazen in Greek, you know. To be wonder that, you know, I am not fed up. Suddenly you appear in this room. I am wondered by your presence. I want to know, I get interested in you. That is also a manifestation of love, you know. So that is love which gives this unity, able not to sacrifice the alterities, what is unique and proper of each many. And this love alone is able to justify the one and the multiple, the many, without denying the multiple. You know, always a question in philosophy is what we do with the many. Then Madinier continues, again coming back to the we of love. So He wants to describe this unity that loving consciousness produces. First of all, he says that is an inner unity based on the reciprocal gift of each single subject. I mean, there is the we, the communion, where each one gives himself to the other. Love establishes those whom it binds, between those whom it binds a real unity, because it unites them from within. The true we is based on love. It is a community of people united by friendship, of people who, through the reciprocal gift of themselves, constitute a whole where each finds his happiness in the mutual exchanges of life, a whole of intimacy where I am able to give and to receive, and give what I have properly, what is my treasure, to give to the other and to receive the best from the other. Three main aspects where the depth in regard to Gabriel Marcel is obvious characterize this unity of love. First of all, the theme of alterity, because love does not lead to a monistic unity of fusion that destroys otherness, but on the contrary, in its unity that is completely relational, love maintains alterities, intensifies them, and transforms them. And I quote again Madinier, to love is to constitute a we, within which consciousness arises as a relationship of me for you and you for me. In this intimacy, there is no identification. For the one who loves, to love is not to blend into the other. To love is not to pass into the other, to lose oneself. It is to welcome in front of oneself and for oneself a being who is a you. Presence, dialogue, reciprocity, all these words mean the opposite of fusion. There is an essential otherness in love. Such is the first identification. If love doesn't respect the other as a you and just want to convert him as an object, as a he or whatever, it is not love. Welcome the you as a you, and also that the you may respect me as a I. We are together. We are not blending. We are not disappearing. There is, in the same year, that was published in 1938. 1938, the year that Emmanuel Levinas, of the greatest philosopher of France in the 20th century, will write his doctoral dissertation. If you read Levinas, all the question of Levinas is that, the other as another, how to respect him and not to reduce him to myself, and Levinas' philosophy will be so crucial, especially after the tragedy of the Second World War, because we know what Hitler has done to the Jewish people, just to annihilate, to destroy them, And the philosophy, Hitler was also based on some philosophers, of course, he has twisted Hegel, and so on. But a way to judge our philosophy is what we do with the other, with the you, with the many. Here it is a painting of Marc Chagall, Jewish painter. He escaped from Russia and he exiled in France. He painted that at the time of motion. We consider now the fact that love creates an authentic you. It allows a passage from the he of the object to the real you, but also to a real I. Because in love, everyone retain his own mysterious characteristic. What I was calling yesterday is SSCB, what is unique to us. But this SSCB is no longer closed in itself, but open. It's become an essay art, a gift to the other. To love, said Madinier, to love consists in transforming a he into a you. When you love somebody, there are so many, speak as a man. There are so many women in the world. They are she. But when I love one, she will become a unique you. You are unique, you know. Love create, love make us going from anonymity to be an anonymous he or she to a real you. To love consists in transforming a he or she into a you. The loved one must have an intimate and secret self in order for him to have to reveal it. Myself must belong to me so that I can open it out and give it away. Love is essentially the inventor of a you. And then the third dimension of this we, this love for Madinier, is that the I and the you do not pre-exist prior to love. The I and the you doesn't pre-exist prior before the we. In such a way, they are constituted by the we. It is this communion, this coesse, as Gabriel Marcel would say, it is this communion which creates the I and the you, which makes it is the we, the communion of the we, which make somebody a he or she becoming a I and a you. And I quote Madinier, the you and the I do not pre-exist love. They are directly constituted by it. It should not be said, therefore, that love is addressed to you as if that you were a things before love. Love is the inventor of a you. It is the we that is first. The relationship defines its subject. Love tends to elicit, to choose a third subject, of which the I and the you are at once both the support and also the products, because they draw an increase from it and become like a new being. So here is also what we are saying yesterday on the fecundity of this love between the you and the I, creating a third subject. So having thus described the unity of love, we naturally move from the I to the we, from the esse to the coesse, being as communion, from being to love. And it must be even said, as Madini argued, that being is a pure relationship of love. At the end, the coesse of love, this being of love, becomes the supreme criterion for the intelligibility of reality. And I quote again Madinier, being is love. That is, a being exists only to the extent he loves. We must not go from beings to love, but from love to being. It is not individual beings who produce love. It is love that produces them. We are produced, we become into this love, into this communion. There is a beautiful, Franz Kafka, one great novelist at the same time, 1930s, at the eve of the Second World War. I always like a letter to his lover Milena. He said, when you appear in my life, you give birth to me. When you appear in my life, give birth to me. Love has given birth to me, has made me to become really what I am. But I would like to add something more on Madinier before coming back to Montchanin. Madinier or Gabriel Marcel, they don't speak of the Trinity, they speak on the created level, on the world. They don't jump into the absolute, they want to describe human reality, for example, the human reality of love or friendship. But indeed, we start, and what I have told you yesterday, you start to see a certain analogy between the two levels, the level of our world, the created world, as we say, the Christian, and the uncreated, the absolute level, But this unity, of love, as described by Madinier, I would say we are on the way and we have not achieved it because in such a way we are always tempted to fall back into the anonymity of the unity of finality instead of accepting to be fully personalized, to become fully a person, that means fully a gift in the unity of love, you know. When, and Madinier said here of this unity of love, intimacy is made from the otherness of beings who made themselves present to each other because they are stripped of their individuality. You know, I mean, when we want to be friends or when we want to be together for life, there is something we have to sacrifice, you know. If we don't make, people say, compromise. Here, Gabriel Madinier speak of sacrifice, you know, our selfishness, you know, because there is, I think, this tendency, we prefer the world to revolve around us, that to enter in a world of different person, different I, you know. There is always a temptation to close on ourselves, you know, and to be locked in our selfishness. And instead of becoming what I have to become, a unique being, very singular, because, you know, love or friendship, or we are speaking of the Department of Philosophy, where you are studying not only one philosophy, but you open to other philosophy that enrich us, you know, that make us unique being, you know. The being I am is a produce of so many relationships, so many readings, so many travels, you know, that has enriched me, that has made me unique. But sometimes we prefer to remain an object, you know, a kind of close in ourselves, you know. All those philosophers will speak of the process of personalization, how we become a real person, you know. And for that, there is a time and to enter into this communion of love, this coesse, we have to sacrifice something, you know, this selfishness, and to become a real being. When this we, I quote Madinier, when this we is constituted by love or charity, far from destroying the singularity of being, it intensified it and make it flourish. The you, in a certain way, is much more personal and unique than a he. But this uniqueness exists only in the we. So this sacrifice is to also to enter into this movement of gift instead of being selfish, to enter in this movement of gift. You know, who are the great professors whom we will remember 20 years, 30 years after following their classes? Who are the great professors? You can ask to Anandaji, because he has so many years of experience. The professors he remembers vividly. The professors whom we cannot forget are the one who are really giving their knowledge, giving their time, giving their passion. If a professor just come and doing his work because he's going to get his salary at the end of the month and eating his pan, if he has no passion, no will to give even extra time to his student, he won't be remembered by his student, you know. So that is that, you know, this what make us to become, you know, a guru. A guru, in India we say guru. I mean, the great gurus, they are universal people, you know. They are a gift for, they belong to everybody. They are a gift to everybody. A real guru belongs to everybody. There is no selfishness in a real guru. Think of the bodhisattva now. It's the ideal of the bodhisattva. They are unique because they are fully a gift, you know. I'm not only speaking as a Christian here, you know. That is the basic of human experience, you know. I speak here as a philosopher with philosopher. Yes, so I have to sacrifice this selfishness to enter in this way of love. Think now, I mean, your parents, how a mother has to sacrifice time. She would like maybe to do other things instead of taking care of the baby who is crying during all the night. She would like to sleep, you know. But if she wants to create this family, this bond of love, this incredible communion which unites the mother, the mamta, as we say here in Hindi, the mamta between the mother and the children. She has to sacrifice her selfishness. I take all those examples to make you understand what Madinier wants to say. And I quote him again, by transforming the alterity of a E, this object, this anonymous E, which is only partially intelligible, which is a decrease of being, ontologically it is less. By transforming the alterity of a E in the otherness of the U, love creates a new multiplicity that is the blossoming of the being. So those were, the very interesting reflection at the time of Montchanin. And of course, Montchanin as a theologian, when you have this kind of philosophers, they were not only Christians, they were Jewish. Martin Buber, at that time, you feel happy, not because they say what you want to hear, but they were helping Montchanin to go to another level, to the level as a theologian, no more to the created level, to go to the absolute level, to understand and make understand this mystery of the Trinity as a mystery of we. Hence my second point for today, being and person in the light of the Trinitarian newness. So for Montchanin, we had to widen our philosophy, or maybe to elaborate a Christian philosophy. I don't want to enter in that debate because in the West there has always been a debate whether there is a Christian philosophy or not. Maybe you would answer more simply that the Western scholars are still battling to know if there is a Christian philosophy or not. But for Montchanin, yes, I would say if there is a Christian philosophy, we have to reconsider the notion of being, the essay, and the notion of person in the light of Trinity. And then, having reconsidered the notion of being and person in this absolute level, to go to the created level, because there is an analogy between the two levels, and with this new ontology, sin ontology, or ontology, Trinitarian ontology, ontology of charity, there are different names. With this new ontology, we'll be able to understand more the reality of this world, So in 1957, Montchanin was the last year of his life, died of a cancer. So at the beginning of September 1957, he was taking rest in Kodaikanal. It's a hill station in Tamil Nadu. And then he was really totally exhausted, and they discovered he had a cancer. So he had to be flew back to Paris, and he died 1 month after. But he wrote, a few months before dying, he wrote those 2 sentences. It was a program for him of what has to be sought, He was always on the move to think more. Not only in Europe, he was thinking Christian theology with the Greek philosophers, but in India, he was thinking Christian theology with Adi Shankaracharya, with Ramanuja. He was always on the move. So his 2 main propositions are those things. Every essay, every being is a co-essay. Every essay, whereas the physical universal, the biosphere, the life, humanity, the church, and in the absolute level, Trinitarian God. So every essay, whether created or uncreated, is a co-essay, the one in the many. The second one, the person, whether divine or human, is an essay ad alterum. Essay ad alterum, that is alterum. Alterum means the other. So the person is the being, the gift to the other, the being turned to the other, the person, the reality of the person, whether human or divine, is to be a gift to the other. And those 2 things are properly the foundation, the two foundation of this synontology he wanted to build. But he died at the age of 60. So, which was not so old at that time, but still quite young. We have to say something of the question of analogy, which is a crucial question, in theology, because here we are moving on two levels: the absolute level of the Trinity and the created level, our reality. That we Christians we believe that this world has been created, so is in relationship with the absolute. But this relationship is asymmetrical, that this world depends on the absolute of the Trinity, which has, by its design, the Trinity has created, God has created the world. But God, the Trinity is not, doesn't depend on the world. No, this is why it is asymmetrical, and the creation has created birth as this imprint of God. And of God, I mean, what I was calling the mudra, the seal, that those created realities, they bear, they have this seal of God, and not only God as unity, but also God as a Trinity, And in this question of analogy, Montchanin said, only, I mean, the world has been created by God, but the world is in process, in journey for this final unification. The world is in process with this, in a final unification. I won't enter too much into that. It's properly the second part of my doctoral dissertation, but the genius of Montchanin was to say that we are always desiring something more. Human being is not satisfied. Blaise Pascal, a great French philosopher, was saying that man surpasses man, that human being is an openness to something greater, to something. We always desire to go to another level, And then, so, this exodus, I would say this law of exodus, as Montchanin was saying, openness to something greater. And the reality is meant for communion, despite all what we see, despite all the war we see. But if we are not happy with the war, it is precisely because we want peace, We want peace. If there is a danga in Varanasi, riot, we will try. It's happened. I mean, the wars are happening, but we desire something else. We are not satisfied with the war. We are not satisfied with division. And Montchanin, I mean, started. So he had a huge dialogue with the scientists. Even in biology, we see how the realities are meant for communion. I was speaking today of love and friendship, this experience we have, but I was speaking of my beautiful vision of the Indian people in the morning on the Ghats. They go in group to take bath. It is Louis Dumont, a French anthropologist, who said, Indian society, only the sannyasi is alone. But even our sannyasis those days, we have the Tamil sannyasis and Kedar Ghats, they are always walking even together, So the reality is meant to go to another level and to go to a greater communion. But so, yes, there is an analogy. It is not that we can make it is equal, the absolute level of God is equal to the world, because this world is also, as I said, broken. This world is destroyed by division. But there is something between those two realities. And for Montchanin, the absolute level, the Trinity, give a unique light on the mystery of the world. The Trinitarian mystery, I quote Montchanin, on it alone illuminates in the darkness of faith the other unpredictable mystery, that of creation. It is the fullness of the being, if the fullness of the being does not exclude, but on the contrary implies this kind of inner space where it expands and recollects itself, implies a constitutive gift of distinct hypostasis, a divine person. So if the absolute is a mystery of communion of gifts, then this absolute can therefore, by pure goodness and out of love, freely arouse a becoming, or rather participants, or being called to participate, to enter in communion with the absolute, in the finite and the duration, and its eternity and its essence. Creation mark is a Trinitarian effigy and rhythm in its structure and history. I won't enter in that because it's open a new series of lecture, But yes, there is the creation. I mean, for Christian is marked with this Trinitarian effigy, and as I said, is meant to a journey to an higher level, and which is an higher level of communion. So I would like now to just to deal with the two propositions of Montchanin. Every essay is a co-essay, and all person is an essay. The person is an essay ad alterum. And for all those two propositions, I will deal first with the absolute level of the Trinity, and then with the created level. It will be in sketch, and in such a way also it will be, I will repeat things I have said yesterday, but maybe it will also refresh and help you maybe to understand things better. Montchanin was writing, is not the mystical experience of the Trinity, of the triune divine being, an appeal to reconsider our idea of essay of being. The divine existence is a personal one, but not a monopersonal one. God is not a it, is not a he, is not a I, but rather is I and I and I. Three I, three poles, and his very essence, the divine ousia, is identical with his three personal relationship. The ousia, the essay of the Trinity, is a co-essay. Therefore, is not every essay a co-essay. And here he uses some Sanskrit words. Every sat is a samsat. I mean, the being is a samsat, a being together. And I think also that in Sanskrit, somebody told me that also there is an idea when you say Jivan, but some Jivan, that in some Jivan, when you, in the prefix Sam, there is an idea of fullness, of plenitude, of fullness, in Sam. So every Sat, a Samsat, every being, a being together. So every essay is a co-essay. Let's see first this proposition in the absolute level of the Trinity, the newness of the Trinitarian co-essay. We'll just repeat things I have said yesterday. We say that for Montchanin, the Trinity in its newness should not be thought solely, uniquely as an essay, as a nousia, because the risk is to understand it, the Trinity, in a very impersonal way, as it would say Madinier. On the contrary, the essay of the Trinity is a co-essay, is an hypostatic communion, a circumincession. Since the essay of the Trinity is a co-essay, an hypostatic communion, we are invited to think of the Trinity not as a I, but as a communion of three I, which are irreducible. We cannot reduce those three I's in their unity. It is probably the co-essay. The co-essay of the divine being with pure relationship of love. Yes, we say that God is a ousia, but in such a way, the ousia, the substance, the essay, but we want to say more. We want to explain more, saying that, explaining how we can philosophically describe the sentence of St. John, God is love. And this is why, it is necessary to raise ontologically the relationship in the table of the categories of Aristotle. Yesterday I said that many times, that for Aristotle the relationship was at the lesser level ontologically, but here the relationship is at the absolute level. And if we use the relationship to speak of this coesse, we see that the communion is the most appropriate way to speak of the being of God. Moreover, this divine communion must be sought as an indissoluble relationship between the monad and the triad, the one and the many, both absolutely first and primordial, without one being anterior to the other. It is together one, and between brackets, many, one and three. And that is really this newness of the one Trinitarian, one revealed. And I quote again the sentence of Tertullian, God wanted to renew his covenant with man in such a way that his unity might be believed in a new manner through the Son and the Spirit, through the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. This new one. In Latin, it's beautiful, like Sanskrit. I mean, there are things in Sanskrit you cannot translate in English, or if you translate, you will lose the beauty. And here in Latin, it is said, "Ut nove unus crederetur," that we believe this one of God in a nove, new way. So, having thanks to the circumcision, the coesse understood the divine being as this array of relationship between the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. We better understand how God is love. And to paraphrase Gabriel Marcel and Gabriel Maninier, it is in this unity of love, in this coesse, the divine we, that the divine person of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit are constituted, are pure relationship of love and gift. In this love, the three are not, they are not first the three to give themselves afterwards. They are because they give themselves eternally to each other. So it is not that you have the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, and after they enter in relationship, they are because they give themselves fully. And you understand that, I mean, that was kind of summary of things we have always said. But you understand also why, I mean, I was speaking that for many in India who don't know much about Christianity, but at least they know Mother Teresa and the Seva. And this is why, I mean, the gift, the service, the love would be at the center of a Christian life, because it is a very mystery of God. It is a very mystery of God. It is, and whoever loves, as St. John says, whoever loves no God. And quoting that, I also quote Tirumular, Tamil sage, Tirumular in his Tirumantiram, of Tamil, who was saying, those who say that God and love are two different things are misleading. They don't know that God is love. This is why when you go to Tamil Nadu, you will see written everywhere, Ande Shiva, Ande Shiva. Shiva is love, I say that because, I mean, the Christians, they don't have the unique property of love, thanks to God, not. So, to reconfigure the essay as a coessay at the absolute level, that is what we have said yesterday. But also, Montchanin was saying, all being, number B, all being insofar as it is being, is circumcision in sketch form. So every being is a call to become a coessay. All being, and not only human being, but also, I mean, here Monchenin speak also of the animals, plants or things like that. But I mean, all being in this created level, in this world, is a circumcision, is a communion, circumcision, coesse, communion, all those things are equivalent in a sketch form, you know. I mean, we will find the fullness, we will attain the fullness of our being and only through communion, you know, only through communion. Only through communion. My parents are going next year to celebrate 60 years of wedding. I will go back to France to celebrate their 60 years of wedding anniversary. It's quite beautiful to see them, you know, at the both 80 plus. They are unique. My mother is my mother, my father is my father. And meanwhile, you know, the communion between themselves has been created and they belong to each other. Sometimes they said, you know, I mean, how to die together. How to die together. Because what we'll do alone. We are meant for that. And Monchenin, he had no time because at the age of 44, this very famous philosopher in France, everybody wanted to have him for a lecture. He left everything for India. He came in India. During 10 years, he was trying to learn Tamil. He was never speaking well Tamil. He was in the countryside as an obscure assistant parish priest, you know, these great intellectuals trying to babble Tamil, you know, with a country fellow, with the peasant, the kisan. And but he found his joy, and after he founded this ashram, the Shantivanam ashram, as a bridge between Christian and the Hindu tradition. So he had no time to carry on his project of synonyntology, but he has laid some notes. He was, you know, writing some very, very dense notes. And the main work of my doctoral dissertation was to go to the archives. And those notes were dealing both with philosophy, theology, and endology. So because they were dealing with three different things. I mean, in India, it's unified, you know, but in Europe, philosophy and theology are separated, and we hardly speak of endology. So this is why those notes were forgotten. They were kept in the archive, but nobody was touching them. I was very happy to decipher them and to work on those notes so dense and to build my thesis. And they are wonderful reflection of Monchenin on the human realities called to communion. Just take an example, you know, the music we had recently, the Drupad Mela. So not only the musician, vocal, the Pakavaj, what else? I mean, is there a tempura? So not only we have different musicians who plays differently, but we feel that the result is one. But we also, when we are listening this beautiful music, we feel totally one. You know, between the musician and the audience, there is something which is created which makes us one, and there is this rasa. You know, there is this ananda coming. In my upcoming books, I have, you know, in the Tantra Loka, Abhinavagupta speaks of this aesthetic experience of a concert. We are all together, you know, and we become one, and we become inner the one to the other, you know. I mean, and if somebody comes doesn't appreciate the music, then Abhinavagupta said is just making a problem. You know, we will feel that, oh, so somebody is, I put into bracket, polluting, you know, polluting our ananda, you know. And we live that, you know. I mean, all of us, we have lived times, you know, and I don't know if I never understood anything of cricket. And I don't like football, even I am a Frenchman. But I mean, when I see, you know, when there is a football match going on in France, you know, you have gang of men in front of their TV, and they're all one, you know, and they enjoy so much, you know. So, I mean, yes, that is the coesse. That is how to describe this experience, you know, which unite us in the same joy, in the same rasa, in the same pleasure, the same mystical experience, how to describe that. So that was the second part of every essay is a co-essay, all being insofar as this being is circumensation in sketch form. I have now, I'm slowly reaching to the end, to deal with the second part, the person, whether divine or human, is an esse ad alterum. Alterum in Latin means other. The person is a gift to the other. And first, I will like to deal with the uncreated level, the uncreated substantial ecstasy. In our consideration of yesterday of the Trinitarian life, we have seen how the perichoretic, the circumensatio, the unity of love, the coesse, how this communion constitutes the three divine persons. To put it in another way, it is within this coesse, within this communion, that the person is a person. Or in personalist terms like Madinier or Gabriel Marcel, it is in the divine we that each divine I is constituted, and I said yesterday, without any temporal consideration or ontological degradation between this we and the three I's. Montchanin has shown us that this vision is understandable only if we consider the divine person as a substantial and created ecstasy. So here I would say what Thomas Aquinas was calling a subsistent relation. The person, the divine person, they say, the gift, the relationship to the other. But the relationship has the very value of what I was calling yesterday, the divine essence. Divine essence. So the relationships that relationship that essay had as the maximal ontological value, the very divine value here, So here the relationship possesses the maximal ontological density, because as St. Thomas Aquinas said, it is a subsistent relation. It's a relation which has the value of the divine, the very value of the divine substance. And here we have seen also that the relationship, the SAR, the gift to the other, grows proportionally with inhabitation. Giving myself, I dwell in the other. We become interior, and becoming interior, we become one. We become one thing. We become one reality. So the gift, the essay out and the essay in grows together. And the more radical the gift, the essay out of each person to the other two, the more profound the intimacy of each person to the other two in the Trinity. And the more we give, the more we dwell in the other, and the more we become unique. I mean, in the Trinity, the Father giving himself to the Son and the Spirit is unique. The Father is unique, the Son is unique, and the Spirit is unique. But they are unique because they give themselves. You remember that idea that the more we love, the more we become unique. It's a beautiful idea. I mean, the more we love, the more we live a passion. For example, if a student of philosophy has no passion, just come to follow the classes because he has to follow the classes. I mean, okay, but if he's in passion with something, then he will become unique. He will become unique. So the more we love, the more we give, the more we become what we are. SCB. And this is why, for Monshana was saying, uh, so having said that of the life of the Trinity, now if we come back to the created level, uh, we say that in this Gabriel Marcel, they were thinking, all those philosophy were elaborated just, at the eve of the Second World War. And there were so many tensions, so much tension in the world, but they dare to speak of communion in a broken world. And Marcel often in his work speak of this broken world, the world of selfishness instead of the world of person, the world of conflict instead of the world of unifying love, Of course, uh, there is this broken world. But what we say about the Trinity shed a unique life, and that is my second point, created substantial ecstasy, that we are called to, the more we give, the more we become give the one to the other, the more we'll become interior, and the more we will become uh, what we are supposed to be in the fullness. Because of this analogy, as I was saying, because of the creation, that the world was created by God and as a seal of the Trinity. I quote here Monshana. So there is a profound analogy between the human and divine person, subsistent relationship, relationship with a maximal ontological value. Both human and divine person are esse ad alterius. This is an analogy not required by the creation of man at the image of God. What is most profound in the human being, within the human being, the personality, cannot be essentially other in him than in God. So here, human being called to this gift, and as I said, I would need another city of lecture to speak of that. And for that, we are called to this exodus, to, and we see, the great spiritual person, speaking of the gurus, who become a kind of universal people. It's a spiritual journey. It has made slowly as open, as expanded, their being, their experience, The spiritual journey has made them going from isolation to become universal gift, and that is this is why, for Monshana, when we speak at the created level, when we speak of the human person as an essay as a being towards yourself, that means that not the reality that I am now. It is an exodus, it is a spiritual journey, it's an adventure, I have to become. I have to become, and I will become uh, through those relationship with other, and Gabriel Marcel said finally we have become universal, and Monchenin also we say we become also, what we finally, it is the relationship with what Gabriel Marcel was calling the absolute you. It is also and here I don't want to say too much of that because we are dealing with philosophy, but the more our spiritual experience, the more our relationship with the absolute will be great, the more I will become, the more I will become. Remember Blaise Pascal, man surpasses man, Human being is an openness to something greater than himself. And when I am in the West, I said, listen, maybe in the West, you are now handicapped. You are handicapped of one dimension, the spiritual dimension. And I said, when I am in Varanasi in the morning, I walk along the Ganges. I saw people in the Ganges do the namaskar to the sun. And I mean, this beautiful Anjali, that is properly that which shows that human being is a call, is as a destination to something greater than himself, you know. And that maybe the tragedy of the West, that people are handicapped, spiritually handicapped. We have closed this door within us, this openness to the absolute. And be sure that doesn't make you more human. To be, and it's not a question to be believers, you know. You have people who are artists. The artists, they have such a wonderful, sometimes humanity, because they are open to something greater, you know, the beauty for an artist, a musician, the great scientist, you know, if you take an Einstein, you would understand that. I don't know if Einstein was a believer or not, but we are meant to something greater. Not only we are meant to enter in communion, in gift, one to the other, but ultimately the spiritual, the mystical experience will make us what we are supposed to be. And here, Montchanin, perhaps the notion of person also has to be reshaped. Since the person in God is relationship itself, an esse ad alterum, a being for and towards the other as other, and the alterity of each divine person from the other is necessarily infinite, it seems that the essence of personality lies in relationship toward other persons and mainly towards the divine person. And Montchanin here in Latin says that the person is an esse ad alterum, esse ad te, I am called to be a gift to you, human being, esse ad te homo, and ultimately is a Christian, so he speaks as a Christian. Ultimately, the definition, the fullness of definition of the human person is to be an esse ad te Christe, being toward you, Christ, toward you, Spirit, and toward you, Father. So that is properly that, you know, the definition of human person. Because in the philosophical tradition, there were many definitions of the person, but it was always something close in itself. And here with Montchanin, the personalist philosopher, the person is an open definition. We are on the way, become personalized. And the more we accept to enter into this journey, which also would need sacrifice, you know, the more we'll become what we are called to become. So that was that, you know, from this contemplation of the Trinity, absolute one, absolute multiple, the way that the person of the Trinity are constituted into this communion, the way they are give toward other. And after, you know, knowing and believing that the world as the imprint of the Trinity, and to understand the world, to understand better the world, we have to see those structures of communion, because there is more, in such a way, there is more being in the coesse, in the communion, than in being isolated, you know. It is after contemplating the divine person of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit as gift towards the other, as you see beautifully represented in the icon, famous icon of Andy Rublev. It's like also I can understand that how the human person is a call, a desire to something greater, which is a gift, a greater gift, and a greater communion. That it is with all of that that Montchanin wanted to build this sin ontology, this social ontology, this ontology of charity. He was maybe the first one in the 20th century to have done that, but he couldn't finish as he came to India and he will died quite early. But Montchanin, something has disappeared on the way anyhow. So Montchanin was one of the first, but in the 20th century, not only in a Christian world, as I said, I mean, Martin Buber, Jewish world, but many philosophers in the West have tried, to think, yes, how to build this Trinitarian ontology where we put at the center of everything charity or love, and gift. I think I have reached at least the end of this lecture. Would just like to summarize briefly those three lectures, First of all, when we speak of the Trinity, I said, so many students, so many people are sweating in their theological studies when we reach a course on Trinity because we won't understand. But finally, I mean, the Trinity, which has the greatest brains of the church in 2,000 years, have been working on that. But it starts from the very simple things, this definition, God is love. Yes, I mean, the Trinity just says that, something very simple, God is love. But how God is love? What is this inner life, How in God, the one and the many are inseparable, many between brackets, So that was the Trinity, this paradox, And for that, the Christian theology has always entered in dialogue with the philosophy, and the Greek philosophy first, but after with other philosophical tradition. Why? Because, we need to be in dialogue, to be understood. Myself, when I came in India, I mean, the first thing was to learn the language. I would have remained with my French. I mean, what kind of man I would have been here in Varanasi or in Tamil Nadu? So we have to learn the language of others. So in such a way, also the theology, when the theology want to explain other people in what we believe, we need concept, we need concept. And we have seen how very boldly at the very beginning of the church, we have used this concept of ousia, which is not found in the Bible, which is a great concept of the Greek philosophy. Also in the Bible, I mean, in the Bible, it's fascinating. In the Gospel of John, I told you if there is at least a text you should read to know about the Christian tradition, it's the first chapter of St. John. St. John speaks of the eternal Son of Jesus as a logos. The Gospel has been written in Greek. And so in our scripture, we have this word logos, and logos is a key word, for the Greek philosophy. So we have made a bridge. For those of you who are Hindu, I mean, you have never lived this separation between the theology and philosophy. This is why, some people in the West, they say, oh no, I mean, Shankara, it's not philosophy, it is theology. Because those people in the West, they just use their own concept, their own glasses to judge your tradition. So you have not, I think, I mean, if I take the Advaita Vedanta, I mean, you have not separated what is philosophy and theology. It has grown together. I mean, there was a logic and everything has grown harmoniously. The story of the West is different because at the Renaissance in the 16th century, the church and the philosopher will go separately, Separately. This is why, now, I mean, in a state faculty of philosophy, like your faculty, they would never ask a Catholic priest to speak of Trinity. No, I mean, that is Andavishwas, that is, there is nothing, it is just bakwas, But we are there in Europe, we are in the West, in this separation. Maybe it has been good. I don't say it has been only bad, it has also been good, but philosophy and theology, for us Christians, are like two wings, and a bird needs two wings, But here, yes, with Montchanin, we see that how Montchanin, both as a theologian and philosopher, has made a conversation with the two traditions. And with the philosophy, he has tried to sort something which which surpasses. There is an excess, There is a thing that you cannot explain only with the use of paradox. And remember yesterday when I was saying, the great paradox of the Mahayana Buddhist, Mahayana tradition. Nirvana is sunyata, sunyata is nirvana. Because we deals of something which goes beyond our human logic. Doesn't it's not an humiliation of our reason. Just the reason has to confess that there are things which exceed the reason. You are in love with somebody. If I said, now explain me rationally, philosophically, explain me your love, okay, you will try to say some things. Maybe you will use Gabriel Madinier. But at the end, you said, love is love. I love that. And it is because I love, I mean, we reach a shore. The shore, if you go to Puri, you will reach the shore of the ocean. We are in front of an ocean which is greater than our human reason. St. Augustine, a great theologian in the 4th century of the church, he wrote a wonderful, monumental book on Trinity. There is this story that Augustine was walking along the sea and he saw a small child with a small shell, a shell. And the child was taking the water of the ocean. And Augustine said, "What are you doing?" "I am trying to put all the water of the ocean in my small shell." "Uh-huh. But you will never manage." And then the child said, "And you, Augustine, you will never put all the mystery of the Trinity, make it fit to your limited reason. There is always an excess. So with the philosophy, we go towards the shore, but beyond the shore, there is this ocean of experience, this ocean of experience. And probably that here, that the religion stands as a witness of mystical experience. And the Kena Upanishad said, when there is the awakening is like a lightning, and we just say, there is this pluta in Sanskrit, because there is nothing more to say, just this cry of the awakened, But we have been walking together, theology and philosophy. We have started with, I will need, Prabhat, I will need your help. No, please, just come back here. So I will need the help of Prabhat because he's a Sanskrit scholar. Yesterday, there was a question on the Satchidananda. All the great philosophers, and you think the hymn of Shankara, they could write wonderful books, wonderful treatises, But they have also reached a point when they can't do anything else than to sing. Bhaja Govinda, Mudamate. Shankara has created those hymns. The beginning of the church, the great theologian of the Trinity, also have composed some hymns. We sing in the liturgy, We sing the hymns. In India, a certain Brahma Bandhav Upadhyaya, Bengali Brahmin of the 19th century, the second part of the 19th century, he became Christian, but he was so badly welcomed in both Catholic Church and Protestant Church that we don't know whether he came back at the end, but I don't want to enter in this question of conversion of Brahmanandav. Because for me, Brahmanandav Upadhyaya, he has offered to the Christian one of the most beautiful hymns on the Trinity, written in Sanskrit. You will recognize many words of the great Upanishadic tradition, of the Vedantin tradition. He has tried to speak as, we can speak in a very rational way, but when we create a hymn like Bhaja Govinda, we speak in another way. So he has tried to speak about the mystery of the Trinity I will ask Prabhat to read it first in Sanskrit. Sorry, I had some problem with my diacritical sign, so just Prabhat come here. Just you read slowly. Okay.
वन्दे सच्चिदानन्दं भोगिलाञ्छितयोगिवाञ्छितचरं पदं परमपुराणपरात्मरं पूर्णम् अखण्डं परावरं त्रिसङ्गशुद्धमसङ्गबुद्धम दुर्वेदं पितृसपितृपरमेशमजं भववृक्षबीजम् अबीजम् अखिलकारणं क्षीणं सृजनं गोविन्दम् अनाहत शब्दम् अनन्तं प्रसूतपुरुष सुमहान्तं पितृस्वरूपचिन्मयरूपसुमुकुन्दं सचिदोर्मेलन शरणं शुभश्वासितानन्दघनं पावनजवनवाणी वदन जीवनदम्
For those who don't understand Sanskrit here, translation. So first, he contemplates the Trinity in its unity. Vande Satchidanandam, I adore the Satchidanandam, Sat being, Chit consciousness, Ananda bliss. Scorned, despised by the worldly people, but the desire of the saint is the supreme goal, Paramapadam. The Most High, the Eternal, the One beyond all. Fullness undivided, most near, and yet inaccessible. Threefold in itself and simple. Threefold in itself and simple. Trisanga, Sudama, Sangha, Buddha. Threefold in itself and simple, pure awareness, holy, passless mystery. And then he contemplates each of the persons of the Trinity. Sarupam, Father, source of all, sovereign Lord, Ajam, unborn, unsown seed of the tree of life. You know, the vriksh, we have that in the Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, in the Bhagavad Gita. That's the first chapter of the Genesis, the first book of the Bible. We have this vriksh also. Unsown seed of the tree of life, universal cause, creating by your glance all provider. There was a contemplation of the sun, the world. Anarata Shabdamanantam, you know, I mean, this philosophy of Svota, Narata Shabda. The word uttered in silence infinite, Son of Man, begotten, Purusha, is Prasuta Purusha. Purusha, you know, mandala, 10th mandala of the Rig Veda, the Purusha Sukta. The Son of Man, begotten, full of glory, the Father's image, subsisting soul, deliverer. And then the Spirit. Proceeding from the union of being, Sat the Father and knowledge, Chit, Satchidor Melana, you know, the Spirit at the link between the Father and the Son, the being, Sat and the Chit, Satchidor Melana, gracious Spirit, substantial bliss, Anandam, those bliss, purifier, swift and free, voice of the voice, life giver. I mean, it's perfectly Christian theologically. There is nothing to say. And yet, it is not that we want to use to insult the Vedantic tradition, but for this man who was born and was by tradition a Vedantic, you know, with his Vedantic word, he has tried to sing this mystery of the Trinity. So to finish, as we have started with the song, the first day, the beautiful sloka. So after having heard the sloka of Prabhatji, we are singing some Christian ashram like the Shantivanam, the ashram founded by Monchanin. and his companion Abhishektananda in South India. They sing every evening this hymn Vandit Satchidanandam with a special tune. Vande Satchidanandam, Vande, Vande Satchidanandam, Vande. Vande Satchidanandam, Vande, Vande Satchidanandam, Vande. Bogi Lanjita, Yogi Vanjita, Charamapadam. Vande, Vande, Vande Satchidanandam, Vande, Vande Satchidanandam, Vande. Paramapurana Parat Param, Purnamakanda Param, Paramapurana Parat Param, Purnamakanda Param, Trisanga Suma Sudama Sangha Buddha Durvedam Vande. Vande Satchidanandam, Vande, Vande Satchidanandam, Vande. Pitru Savitru Paramesham, Ajamba Vaksham Rigjamba Brisham, Akila Karana Iksana Srijana, Govindam Vande, Vande Satchidanandam, Vande, Vande Satchidanandam, Vande. Anagata Shabdamanantam, Prasuta Purusha Sumahantam, Piturusvarupam Chinmaya Rupam, Sumukundam Vande, Vande Satchidanandam, Vande, Vande Satchidanandam, Vande. Satchidor Milana Saranam, Shubha Sabisitanandam Ganam, Pavana Javana Vadivanana, Jivanadam Vande, Vande Satchidanandam, Vande, Vande Satchidanandam, Vande. Om Tat Sat. Once again, thanks so much for having given me this grace, this privilege. Quite incredible to speak the mystery of Trinity, of Montchanin, of Brahmabandha Vupadaya among you. Thank you so much, Anandaji. Thanks for your participation, your listening. For the question, yes, there was. Wanted to tell you, I mean, the book, the doctoral dissertation will be soon published. So in English, already, I mean, if you want to know more, this mix of philosophy and theology and testimony of life, if you go to Harmony Bookshop of Indica Bookshop, two of my books are there, A Priest in Benares, which is also the story of the Christians in Varanasi, and then the second one, Indian portraits of those Christians like Montchanin, Abhishektananda, who have lived, who tried to build bridges between the two Christians and Hindu traditions, the Indian portraits. So those books are available in Harmony Bookshop and Indica Bookshop in Vagneux.
Thank you very much once again, um, Father Dr. Yann, for the amazing lecture. How you put so much effort to understand from different angles and mostly in connection with how we can understand in line with Indian philosophy, and all these things are I think it must have taken lots of efforts for you to learn and understand all this. And thank you so much for delivering such a wonderful lecture. And now we can take some questions. If you have any questions, then you can take the time. Yes, please.
Good evening. Thank you very much. In fact, after recitation of Vande Sachita Nandam, which was very, very peaceful, I didn't feel like asking question. However, this is a philosophical discourse, so few ideas that came into my mind while listening your presentation, talk, lecture. And I came to learn many new philosophers, although I have read little bit. So while presenting the idea of Marcel Madiner and Martin Buber and all that, you explained all about the communion of I, you together. You said we, and also Monchna and other philosophical idea that you portrayed. All this sounded to be only talking of human communion, as you mentioned the background of World War. And in this, I found that the idea of God is somehow missing. And when you are talking of Trinity, which you said the fullness of mystery and but when you talked of God, there was no place of human in this. And finally, you talk of sin ontology. Do you think that how can you relate, or is there any still gap? Because I find still there is something missing in these two presentations. Because I'm trying to understand how you have related this idea, which is one is totally called phenomenal level, human level. Other remains the on the very higher abstract level of. If you could relate something, tell me. Thank you.
Yeah, dear Florence, so as you know, because here I was dealing with thinker from the West, even though, I mean, Montchanin has spent 17 years of his life in India, and actually the third part of my doctoral dissertation is about the dialogue of Montchanin as a Christian with Adi Shankaracharya. But we have taken a lot of time to reach to that. But you know that in the West, today, I mean, especially after the Renaissance, you know, what we call the Enlightenment, Enlightenment, yes, I say that. Sorry, because sometimes I miss some words in English. So from the Renaissance, I mean, in the European cultures, there have been a break between the theology and the philosophy. And if you look at Kant, you know, Kant is a very emblematic of that, you know. What we can think is not that Kant was an atheist, not at all, you know, but what we can think with the human reason only, you know, and there was for them the reason has some limit, and we had to think on the limit. Hence, and maybe it has also been exaggerated, you know, in the West, but the fact that we don't think when we are in philosophy, we don't think of God or as such as you know we will do in the Vedantin philosophy. So this is why, you know, I said, you know, Marcel and Buber, Marcel Buber, of course, and Madinier, even though all of them were believers, you know, but they think in the limit of the human reason. So you can say, maybe, yes, but the human reason is also open to something, and that was properly of Plato's, proper of Plato, you know, because with Plato, they're always open to the one beyond everything, you know. But the philosophy that is understood and that is still understood today, you know, doesn't enter or goes at the border, you know, as I said, you know, at the edge of this great ocean. The great ocean will be the question of God, but we remain on the solid, the earth, you know. And the philosophy is that, you know, what I really appreciate in those philosophers, personalist philosophers, you know, is that they have been able to think of reality which has been really taught, really reflected in the philosophy in the 17th, 18th, 19th century. You know, so being with, you know, I told, you know, if you take Sein und Zeit, being on time of Martin Heidegger, speak of the different modalities of being human, you know, the Dasein. But the Mitsein, the being together, is hardly taught, you know. So this is why, you know, we have clearly a limit, you know. And I do myself, I would say, and maybe I am too much a Western man for that, but what I expect from the philosophy is to remain within those limits, to show that there is something exceeding, you know. But this, what is exceeding, can my reason grasp it? Or is it exceeding my reason, you know? Now, this is why, you know, we have spoken of man not without God, you know, because I said, you know, ultimately for Montchanin and also for Gabriel Marcel, when he speaks of this absolute you, that the you of with whom I am in relation is not only a human you, but ultimately the absolute, you know, the absolute. Now, on the other part of your question, I have said, you know, I mean, I have dealt with Trinity, that was asked by the Department of Philosophy. I have not spoken of many great mysteries of the Christian faith, like the incarnation of Christ. One of the Trinity has become man and fully man and fully God. I have not spoken of that. And I have hardly, but I have said, you know, I mean, the creation, the relationship between God and man, I have said it is not only man, but the created world, you know, there is a relationship asymmetrical because the world depends on God, but God is not dependent on the world, you know. But I said, you know, many times, this creation, the sign of this relationship will be this seal. It's an image, Trinitarian seal, that making that to understand those created realities, and I have dealt mostly with human beings, you understand their esse as a co-esse. You understand them as an exodus, as a journey toward a greater gift. I don't think I have separated here God and man, but mostly I had to speak of the Trinity, you know. This is why I think twice I have said today I could make another series of 3 lectures on this question. The human being is an exodus, you know. The definition of the human being is to be an exodus, be a gift. So things are, but it shows that in the West, the separation of the philosophy and the theology is much more, I would say, important that in India, you know. Maybe that is a consequence of the Christian faith, or speak of our cousin, the cousin of the Christians as the Jewish people, you know. The Jewish people, they have a beautiful theory of the creation of the world, the Tzimtzum. God creates the world by disappearing, you know. God make a space, so part of him disappear, and he make a space for the world to appear. And yes, I mean, even in the Bible, you say he created them, man and woman, he entrusted them the world. You know. This is why, you know, in such a way, this possibility of thinking human being as such, without referring to an absolute, is maybe a consequence of our faith. We shouldn't exaggerate, but maybe, you know, hence all the ideas of the West of what, you know, in India we have secular. Those days there are so many discussions on secular. In France we have the separation. Before, the church and the state were so much together. The king of France should be a Christian. In 1905 there was the separation of the government and the church. At that time the Christians were crying, making strikes and so on. It was a blessing. It was a blessing because I'm convinced when religion and the power goes together, it is a very dangerous cocktail, you know. It's a very dangerous cocktail. So there is something in the West exaggerated in this separation of philosophy and theology, but there is something very healthy. And I do believe, yes, the philosophy also how to learn to live in this world, you know, in this world. But we should, as I said, we shouldn't be handicapped. We shouldn't forget that we're also called to something higher. Please.
Thank you for the 3 lectures. Um, uh, the last part where we sang that hymn, Sachidananda, was beautiful. If the 3 lectures are meant to result in this kind of devotion, then I think this is good. But sitting there and listening to the lectures, several questions came to my mind. My questions will be very much practical questions. For example, why look at classical theologies of 3rd century and 4th century unless it has any bearing on today's context? Why look at ancient theological perceptions that is gone long ago, even long before Reformation? And post-Reformation, we had many theologies emerge, even contextual theologies emerged since 1950s, and we live in 21st century. Why look at those unless it has any bearing for India and the world at large today? Secondly, do you assign gender to Trinity, since we have gender studies all over the world? Do you assign gender? Or it is an odd question? I am not sure because I'm not a theologian. And finally, I would like to ask, since love is very much inherent in the existence of Trinity, love is inherently existent in Trinity. Does that has any bearing in today's context, in global context, and very much in Indian context, and Banaras context also, where we have faiths in conflict?
Thank you so much.
As you surely may know, and I have always in my meetings with my Hindu friends, something I always to explain, Amari dharme tin shaka hai. In the Christianity, you have three main branches. I don't know how to order them, so I will order them historically. There is the indivisible Catholic Church, whose point of reference is the Pope, the Vatican, I mean in Rome, the Pope of Rome, Pope Francis. So for historical and political reasons, which were also based on some theological conflict, but it was mostly politics. In 18 one no in 1074 1074 there was a schism, and so another branch appears, the Orthodox Church, who at the time was based, main seat was Constantinople, which is now the Istanbul, the capital. The Istanbul is not the capital of Turkey, but is in Turkey. And after, from the Orthodox Church came, from this branch, from that branch came other ramification. You have the Russian Orthodox Church, you have the Romanian Orthodox Church. Now, in 1517, in Germany, was born the Reformation with a Catholic monk, Martin Luther. And with the Prince of Germany, they separated themselves from the Church of Rome. That also their reason, and I really don't want to judge. I am just explaining the historical process, And from the Protestant Church came so many churches. In India, you will have, now they have been regrouped into the term of Church of North India. You have the Methodists, the Lutherans, then you have the Pentecostal Church. So, Catholic Church, under the leadership of the Pope of Rome, the faith is the same. The discipline is different. For example, in the Catholic Church, the priests are Bal Brahmachari. The Orthodox Church, the Eastern Europe, you have priests Bal Brahmachari and married priest. The Orthodox, the Protestant churches, I take just the question of the priest, yes, because the pastors are married. Now, we have many things in common, thanks to God, and we meet often, and I think our differences enrich us. Because Mrs. Grace and Diwaka was a question, they are Protestant. But what we have in common is a part of the theology. We have in common the theology from the beginning of the church till 1874. And the Christian theology has been mostly developed on the first 5, let's say 7 centuries. The great theologians, those who have explained the faith in what we believe. There's the Trinity. The great chapter will be the mystery of Christ, true man and true God, All were what we call them the father of the church. They are common to those 3 branches, those 3 shakas of the church. We have that in common, And why Prabhakara, why I insisted so much? Because if you want to speak of the Trinity, you have to come back to the first one who spoke of the Trinity, and they were those fathers of the church. Of course, in the 20th centuries, the question of the Trinity has been launched again. There was a renewal of the studies, first with the Protestant, and the Catholics have followed, and the Orthodox, of course. All the 3 branches of Christians, really there was a renewal of the studies. But I have chosen to come back to the first theologian also for another reason, because they were those first thinkers, those theologians, they were in deep dialogue with Greek philosophy. And speaking in a department of philosophy, I was thinking, it is good to to speak of this dialogue between the theologian, the church, and the philosopher. I think it's quite remarkable, this dialogue that has been done. And we have to carry on this dialogue, as you know, Brahmananda Upadhyaya, he expressed with some great words of the Vedantic tradition or the Vedic tradition, the mystery of the Trinity. It's very bold to speak of Christ as a Purusha, but I think it's very bright and beautiful to make bridges. This question of gender, I won't enter because we do believe that God is beyond gender. Even though the image, when we say he's a father, when I say father here, and I told you yesterday, it's very difficult for Islam to understand because if we say father, there is a mother somewhere, and the sexual intercourse, and then we have a son. So father means a relationship. We could maybe have used mother, and some also speak of the spirit as a feminine dimension. But I think Christians, Muslims, Hindus say that God is beyond gender. That doesn't justify that we have to be machist, of course. I mean, there is nothing to justify this hierarchy, It's not that, say, his father, that we are justifying a patriarchal society. Now, for the third question, my only answer would be that. Yeah, you can see the tension in Varanasi or in India. In French, we have an expression to see, my bottle, here it is full. Here it is, let's imagine water will reach here. So in French, we say the glass is half full or half empty. And there are the people who see, well, optimistic, so they see the glass is half full. And other people, they know it's half empty. Now, which country has so much diversity? Ethnies, tribes, of culture, of religious tradition. Hinduism is a very misleading word for so many sampradayas, so many traditions. Which country has so many religions? And when I speak, especially in the West, I said, I am very impressed because beside everything, and I don't want to forget the problems, but India is doing quite well. I don't want to enter more in that. Now, in Maitri Bhavan, the Center for Interreligious Dialogue, of whom I am the animator, we try to live this communion in Varanasi, giving a space for people of different walks of life, of religious tradition, of background, to speak together and to live a beautiful communion. And those of you who have come to Maitri Bhavan and who are continue to come, I think we see in Maitri Bhavan, it's a place where we can see the great beauty of Varanasi. And we need to work for communion. We need to meet together, because if we don't meet, then we start to make prejudices one of the other, and then divisions comes. Yes, communion. I said today, Gabriel Marcel, this broken world, this great ideal of cohese, of becoming fully ourselves in gift and love. It's a battle also. It's a battle, and people have given their life for communion, There are people who are spending their life to put bomb, and generally in the conflict, the first things that we destroy are the bridges. In the war, the first things you have to destroy are the bridges. But there are people who have spent their life building bridges to allow this communion. This métissage, in French, this mélange, this métissage, these encounters. And I think India has never been at its best when it was a culture of encounter that is properly what was Varanasi and what is Varanasi.
Firstly, thank you so much, sir, for your thought-provoking and informative talk. In the journey of your talk, I noticed something. You have done the conceptual orientation, conceptual orientation within the realm of Trinity, having I-we relationship. There, if we put it in the frame of Cartesian methods and move into the Ubuntu philosophy, we'll find some sort of radical changes is coming when we start from I and we are mingled with we. We are when we are mingled with we are disappearing I. So that means the identity crisis is lacking or not in the epistemic inquiry. Forget about this spiritual or religious inquiry, and you have no within the exercise you try to introduce and try to explain little more about love and intellect intelligent. I think yes, it is fine, but we should move towards the uh, as per my understanding, there's something we can say the final goal of a being. The goal of a being because the person started from love and going via intellect or intelligent, but should reach somewhere else because reach somewhere else that should considered as the goal of the being. And I notice in this realm, a person should be seeker of peace, but that is completely missed in your talk. So, uh, and also the last final one, I can say, whether Trinity manifest fraternity or not. And one slides I found a little just, I think that is my doubt. Something, I think 58, slide number 58, you provided a picture where three females sitting together. But I notice, though they are sitting together, but they are not in a single mentality. If you look at the picture critically, single mentality. Someone is somewhere something thing, somewhere something else. They don't have any harmonious relation in the sitting together. So I think sometimes if we then what they represent. That's all. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Rajibaji, because that helped me to maybe to come back and to make it more clear. When we speak of the we, you know, I would say, make a little caricature, but the West has gone so far and so wide in the I, and we have forgotten the we. But now the we can be understood as something suffocating. I belong to this group. I have to think like the group, you know. I have to follow the rule of that group. You know. We'll speak. We'll come back. Don't know if I have understood this. Huh? I just want to continue and what I was saying, there is a way to understand the we, which is not according love or according, ultimately according the Trinity. I belong to the group and I have to follow the rule of the group. Precisely, that was those ideas, identity or finality. Madinier spoke of three ways of unifying the many: identity, finality, and love. Identity is that, the group has decided for me and deny my singularity. But here in the Trinity, or in this question of love, as it was shown by Marcel and Madinier, the we and the I are together. You cannot separate. I am not, the I is not disappearing in the we. The I is constituted in the we, but the we needs the I. That is not the paradox of holding together the one and the many. And this is why, this example of love or friendship or even in a concert, if we listen our Drupad Mela, you will have a feeling of great oneness, great beauty. But after, the Pakawaj is still here and still plays. You can hear the singularity of the Pakawaj or the singularity of the Gayak or. And this we makes the I more I. You don't disappear, you don't disappear. Now, so for the icon, as I said, it's very difficult to represent Trinity, first of all, because the Trinity is beyond words and beyond imagination. But there is, I think he has managed quite well, those people bending. And if you look, each one is very different in his clothes. The clothes are different. The Father has this tree of life, the Son as a rock, and the Spirit as there is above his head city. Each is of the three are singular. Meanwhile, they are together. Now, coming back to the question of fraternity. Now, we can say, I speak of my experience in Varanasi. Father Yann, you are a Catholic priest. What are you doing in Maitri Bhavan with those Hindus, Buddhists, Muslims? Why you are spending all your morning, doing Sanskrit and reading the Brahma Sutras and Abhinavagupta? What's the use? You are Christian, just read things Christian, just try to make some conversion, People could think that. But because I am Christian, because I believe in the Trinity, as a consequence, I recognize you in your tradition, the nobility of tradition. I spend so much time to listen you, to study your tradition, to be enriched by your tradition, to be challenged by your tradition. Maitri Bhavan, you have come to Maitri Bhavan. This tentative to make a platform of meeting of different religion is the expression of the Trinity. And in Maitri Bhavan, if somebody, a Christian, start to say derogatory things about Hindus, be sure that I will take him and put him out. I said, you have nothing to do here, because you are here to listen each other, to recognize the singularity, and meanwhile, to experience this fraternity, this we, this fraternity. And I do hope that is the way of peace. Because if you ignore the other, you deny this existence. Oh, nothing. As a Christian, what I should receive from Shankara Vedanta, nothing, And then you ignore, you don't meet, you start to do prejudices. Then hatred will come to poison, as a poison to spread in your heart, and then war came. Whenever there is no more bridge, be sure that the war will start. We'll be face to face, I want to destroy this one, If, and the Christian, of course, have not been faithful, are sinners, as we say, We have not been, we have not been, we have failed to live the Trinity. Some Christians hopefully also have, like we are quoting Desmond Tutu. He was such a man of peace. I think his faith has influenced his political action, you know. So a we in which we are not dissolved, we don't disappear. On the contrary, you are more, and you are more because you are enriched by the other, and also because you give, you know. I mean, you have learned so much, Rajiba. Now you are professor, and I think it's a new joy for you to share your knowledge, you know, and that's make you grow humanly, you know. Yes, there is a time to study, there is a time to give what we have received, you know. And that life, giving, receiving, giving, receiving. That is a mystery of life, to give and to receive.
Okay, my knowledge is very limited, but just few things. It's not even an addition, but just few things I'd like to share as well is like Christianity is heavily based on two meso things as fundamentals. That is, number one, based on historical facts, and number two, theology built upon the teachings found in the Bible. So, as Father was, Dr. Yann was also saying over and over again that from the word of Jesus, the Trinity, the concept of Trinity is also clearly seen. And when we look into the cosmology or about the creation of the earth story also in Genesis 1, the first book of the Bible itself, in the first verse we see this. In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth was formless and empty, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the deep. Means here the Holy Spirit is also taking part in the creation. And in the Genesis account, we also see like after God has created the heavens and the earth and everything in it, and all living beings, plants and animals, before human beings were created, when everything was already created, including the celestial bodies, God was saying, it is good. And after that, he said, let us make man in our own image. So here, God was saying, let us make man in our own image. So theologians were also pointing out that let us, in this let us, the Spirit, the Father, and the Son are there. And then coming back to Zone account, which says, in the beginning was the Word, that is the Logos. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and without the Word, nothing was created. So, the Son, the Word was also there. God the Son was also there. Because as we read further, it says, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. The Word that is represented as the Son of God, of the Trinity, became human being and dwelt among us. And then we also find in John account also that Jesus, the Son of the Logos, also took part in the creation. The Holy Spirit also took part in the creation. And then, and God, the twin God took part in that. And then, and Jesus also many times said, I cannot do anything on my own, but according to what the Father has told me to do. What my Father. And he always shows dependency on the Father. So he has great respect for the Father. And then the Trinity concept bound by love and also respect for one another. We see respect and regard and recognition for one another as well in this. And then in Philippians account also it's written like this. He became obedient even unto the point of death. Means in John 3:16 it says, God gave his, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, to die for the sins of the world. And so in that, we see that the Father is the one who sent his Son to die for the sins of the world. And so Philippians account also says like this, Jesus became obedient, he humbled down himself, because for God to come down at the level of human being is so much of humility. And then he came down and humbled himself, took the form of a human being, suffered at the hands of those he had created, and died. So he became obedient even unto the point of death, because God the Father sent him to die for the sins of the world. So he became obedient even unto the point of death. So here we see that the Son is obeying the Father, and then the Son always acknowledges his Father's power. And also, Jesus also said, before his ascension, his death and resurrection, and before ascension into heaven, he said, it is good that I go away from here, so that I will send the Holy Spirit, who will always be with you. And then he will guide you unto all truth. He will lead you, guide you, comfort you, and he will teach you. And so it is good that I go away. And Jesus himself had said, I will send the Holy Spirit. And then he says, I will send, but then he promised the Holy Spirit, but it doesn't mean that the Holy Spirit is inferior to him. Many a times, he also even said like this, anyone who blaspheme against God the Father, God the Son can be forgiven, but whoever blaspheme against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven. There are only two unpardonable sins in the Bible. That is, one is, if we don't forgive the sins of others, God will not forgive our sins. So by all means, we have to forgive each other. Number one. And number two, Jesus said that if you blaspheme even the Father, God, or even the Son, your sins can be forgiven. But if you blaspheme against the Holy Spirit, your sins cannot be forgiven. So in that way, the Holy Spirit is not inferior. He is not just a messenger that Jesus is sending, but we see how, we see even the level that we see is not inferior to them, but it even looks like he's quite above in many ways as well. And he also says, they that worship must worship in spirit and in truth. And so in this, we see love, respect, obedience, and recognition of each other throughout the teaching in the Bible. And Sar has clearly pointed out about Trinity as relationship found in love. And when we talk about, say, there is one complete full chapter in the Bible, in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the whole chapter is about love. And it says like this, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have no love, I'm nothing. And though I give my body to be burned, and though I give away all my properties to the poor and to the needy, and if I don't have love, it profited me nothing, and I'm nothing. Love suffered long and is kind. Love does not envy each other. Love beareth all things, endure all things, hope all things. And so when there is love between, among the Trinity, I think that is the thing that is binding the Trinity, so that it is not divided, but while trying to understand about the many in one, it is also bound by love and recognition for each other, and obedience and love and coordination as well. Yeah, thank you so much. And then I think it will be the best if our head of our department, who is heading, will kindly give the final vote of thanks. Okay. Okay. I, on behalf of the department and from the behalf of our head also, thank each and everyone for participating and attending. Well, even if programs are organized, if there are no people, then we cannot carry out the program as well. And Sir Nanda Mishra had been talking, telling since the last few years that let's have some lectures on Trinity. And sir, that was even before COVID, I think, or soon after COVID. Yes, after COVID. Yeah, sir was telling, let's have some lecture series on Trinity. And then sir has also deep knowledge about all kinds of tradition, Hindu tradition, Islamic tradition, Christian tradition. And he was telling even about Saint Augustine and many other things. I was amazed at the in-depth knowledge that he had about all traditions. Yes, and then we really thank all the participants and people who have been cooperating and attending and listening patiently and also participating. And even if we come, if there would be no one to deliver the lecture also, it will not work. And we really thank you, Dr. Yann, for the in-depth knowledge that you have shared and lectured. And then, okay, few people may say you left out this, but this is a very vast topic, and how can we cover everything in just one lecture? Yeah, and once again, we thank our respected speaker, Dr. Yann, and also everyone who is present here. Thank you, friends.